This stump is strictly within the HOA's border.
This has been my family's land for generations.
We have clear rules, sir.
I had owned this farm for years, and that old tree had become dangerous. So when it finally became a safety problem, I made the decision to remove it from my own property. I barely had time to clean up the branches before the HOA representative showed up. She wasn't there to ask questions. She was there to hand me a bill. She told me the HOA had assessed me a $1,200 fine for removing the tree. I looked at the paper, then looked at my own land, wondering how they thought they had authority over it. That was when I started thinking the problem wasn't the tree. It was a property line, and somebody had apparently misunderstood where it actually ran. That evening, I pulled out my deed, old surveys, and property records. The more I compared them, the more suspicious the HOA's claim became. The old survey clearly showed my farm extending beyond the tree. The tree wasn't sitting inside an HOA-controlled common area at all. I wasn't going to argue with anyone based on assumptions. I decided to bring in an independent professional who could examine the tree and the surrounding property. The next morning, an experienced arborist arrived at the farm. I explained everything and asked him to inspect the stump roots and surrounding ground without taking anyone's side. He didn't react to the HOA story. Instead, he immediately focused on the physical evidence left behind by the tree. The arborist traced the roots and studied where the tree had actually been growing. Then his expression changed as he noticed something unusual beneath the soil. A buried pipe ran close to the root system. That discovery made the arborist stop and take a much closer look. He asked me exactly where the property boundary was. Then he compared the physical location of the pipe with the survey I had brought. For the first time, all three of us were looking at the same evidence, and the measurements were beginning to tell a very different story from the HOA's paperwork. The measurement confirmed that the tree stood on my farm. The HOA's assumed boundary was several feet away from where they believed it was. She went quiet and started reading the documents again. For the first time, she wasn't arguing. She was trying to understand how the mistake had happened. The original subdivision plat finally answered the question. The HOA boundary stopped well before my farm began. The arborist explained that the tree itself wasn't the mistake. The mistake was assuming the HOA's jurisdiction followed the newer neighborhood landscaping instead of the actual recorded boundary. Then he explained why the roots had exposed that pipe so clearly. It was connected to infrastructure serving the newer development, but that didn't automatically give the HOA ownership of my land. The HOA board finally agreed to review its records instead of relying on the original assumption. The paperwork had to be checked against the actual recorded property boundaries. To remove any remaining doubt, an independent survey was ordered. The new measurements matched the older records almost perfectly. The survey confirmed what my original deed had already shown. The tree had been completely inside my farm parcel. Now, there was a simple question. What would happen to the $1,200 fine? The evidence made it clear that the original assessment had been based on incorrect information. At the next board meeting, the documents were presented to everyone. There was no shouting or drama, just the facts, the survey, and the actual property records. The board acknowledged that the original assessment had been made in error. The $1,200 charge was withdrawn. She apologized for confusion and admitted the boundary had been misunderstood. I accepted the apology because the important thing was getting the facts straight. The arborist also gave me a detailed report explaining why removing the tree had been the responsible choice. The report documented the tree's condition and the surrounding root problems. That day taught me something simple. Property boundaries matter. Assumptions can create expensive mistakes, but good records and professional evidence can set things right. A few weeks later, everything was back to normal. The farm was peaceful again, the dispute was over, and the $1,200 mistake was officially gone. In the end, I didn't win by fighting louder. I won because the records and the evidence told the truth. Like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from.